That's it. If they've had a triggering event, if they dealt with it themselves, such as
Sure.
you.
Right. Right.
A lot of times, that's what'll make somebody come in and say, geez, we just had this. My father lost the house. He didn't have to. And now my aunt's in the same situation. Can we save the house here? So it's usually, I think people need the actual experience, the
Right.
visceral experience. Like, my God, this stuff they're talking about is actually real.
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
obviously it is real.
Right. Right.
But you don't sense that it's real if it hasn't happened to you.
Well, what I found this an interesting topic myself, Roger, is that it did happen to us. My husband and I did do some estate planning. We made some mistakes as well, but we did at least did some estate planning.
Yeah.
It was very helpful to us. Really, quite honestly, because I have this job and I've watched people like yourself talk about these issues, and so I thought, oh, gee, we should probably do some estate planning. And we did do some things before the 5-year setback. In fact, we did them before the 5-year rule came into effect, which I think was 2006. They used to have like a 3-year look back, I think, previously to that.
There's something called a DRA. There used to be shorter disqualification periods. It used to be a 3-year max, and then if you were doing house transfers, it might even be shorter than that. But since 2006, it's basically been 5 years.
But despite what I went through and what I've talked to people about this issue goes, people still don't. They just don't do it. They don't want to plan. I don't know why. I think it brings up a lot. Their relationship with their children, their relationship with death, their relationship with all kinds of. It's an emotional, I think, planning as opposed to just being a regular legal document.
I agree with all of that, and maybe the colonoscopy thing is appropriate. Speaking of which, I've been putting that off
See that?
for God knows how long. But with the estate planning stuff, more so, it's a lot of times there's no sense that there's an immediate gain. There's just an avoidance of a loss. So sometimes people just put that off. Well, if I don't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. I mean, for example, guardianships are something that, in my opinion, it's a crime that anybody has to ever go get one, because that is so easily preventable by doing some simple core documents.
Guardianships meaning what, Roger? You talked about that it's difficult to get, but I really didn't fully follow you when you were talking about who will take care of your children when you die, or take care. I'm sorry, take care of you.
Well, this moves away from the nursing home piece.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead. We have a few minutes. Go ahead.
All right. I mean, basically, what a guardianship is, if a person is legally incompetent, then literally they can't make decisions for themselves, and a lot of times decisions need to be made, whether they be financial or health. All right, so you have to go through a process where somebody lobbies to be a guardian. It's a court process that you literally, as the language goes, step in the shoes of the person and act as the person would act if the person were rational, or sane. So it's just an ordeal. That's all I can tell you.
And if you do these things ahead of time,
guardianships to me are so preventable just by some simple actions. Protection of assets against a nursing home, I think, is a little bit tougher, but certainly the protection of real estate is very doable. Once again,
and as you said, it's maybe more difficult, but it's your most important. For most of us, it's the most important asset.
Well, the real estate is the easiest thing to protect, but once again, you have to act enough ahead of time to get that protection. Other assets, there are some things you can do, but yeah, it's the time element.
Right, exactly.
And I can't say, there's a pattern. Some people do, some people don't. Like I say, I have no idea what percentages are.
Sure.
I just know a lot of times when people act, it's because they've had an actual experience of somebody that they know happened to, because it happened to, it was disaster, and hey, how do I avoid this disaster for myself, my spouse, my family?
That's very true, Roger. And as I say, even when you do talk to people directly, they really just want to believe things that aren't so, like the veterans protection or some things or along that line. Just lastly, Roger, what is your feelings about nursing home care insurance?
I sound wishy-washy in everything. I don't think it's right or I don't think it's wrong. I think it depends on the situation.
Right.
A lot of times situations, if somebody just has real estate and not really much in the way of other assets, I don't think it's justified, because there are other ways to protect the real estate.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap insurance.
Well, based on, the younger and the healthier you are, the better off it is. You are. I don't generally recommend that people take it prior to age 65, because your chances of having to go in are minimal. If you try to get it at age 75, 80, it's monstrously expensive. So somewhere in that time frame, 65, 70, if you have enough assets, and I can't even put a figure on it, a lot of times it'll make sense.
Just as a side note too, Roger, I read an article not too long ago that about a nursing home insurance company that people couldn't get them to pay by saying that the person didn't really qualify. There was some controversy probably about 2 or 3 years ago about some, well, I can't even remember the name of the insurance company, but people had paid into it, but they weren't
Yeah.
covered by it. So that's the other
I
piece.
mean, there can always be a problem getting an insurance company to pay. To be
Yeah.
honest with you, I haven't had any problems. Maybe there's some reluctance, but generally, you know, if the contract is the contract,
Then they do that.
then they'll
Okay.
pay.
Sure.
They'll pay.
Sure. I mean,
So
so it depends on if you have a lot of assets, it's probably a
it probably
good
makes
rate.
more sense. I mean,
But if you're just an average person who has a house as your biggest asset, probably not.
there are ways to protect the house without having to get nursing home
I see.
insurance.
All right. Very good, Roger. Roger, we really didn't get into some of the other elements of, we talked a lot about house protection, but we didn't get into a lot of the other elements, like the specifics of a will, proxies, and the things that the other paperwork that you talked about. Maybe at some time we can have you come in and talk about these simpler forms, which I think is a little bit more straightforward than nursing home care in housing. I think that's the more difficult. But if nothing else, even though much of what we said today sometimes hard to digest, it's difficult for people to digest it, I hope that it maybe prompts people maybe to make some thinking about planning down the line.
One of the reasons I like these programs, and I think it's good that they're on TV, is I know you guys do them in a loop. So a lot of times people will tell me, well, you know, they'll watch it 2 or 3 times or 6 or 7 times.
Or
you know,
catch pieces of it as they go through the day, right?
Yeah, it's like when people come in to see me, and you know, I do something that tries to separate the issues of estate taxes, probate, and nursing home, say what goes into what area, and I'm throwing so much stuff at them, and I'm aware that I am. I'm saying I'm just trying to give you an overall sort of lay of the land type of thing.
Sure.
But I think the beauty of television is you can, you know, watch it over and grasp
a little bit at a time.
Grasp a little bit at a time.
It's a lot, Roger. It's a lot for anybody just to take on. And if someone's watching, this is just, it's overwhelming. You need to take it a little piece at a time and then come to terms with it a little bit at a time. And it's a little bit like being a counselor. You know, it's such a difficult process, an emotional process that it just takes a lot to
it's got everything in it. It's got family. It's got healthcare concerns. It's got monetary concerns.
It's got death.
What doesn't it have? It's the great soap opera of life.
Well, Roger, thank you. Roger Levine has been our guest. Thank you. You're an attorney here in Canton. People can get in touch with you if they're interested here in Canton to talk about these issues. And I, just from personal experience, can tell people that you know, your biggest asset is your house. If you would like to see the grandkids maybe do a little bit better in life or make that college tuition and hand something over to your heirs, you really need to plan ahead of time, because if not, you're not going to. I don't even know if you could even give the old car to them. You can lose a lot. And it's in nursing home, as you said, it's $11,000 on average, I think, a month.
Yeah.
Which it's just the going rate, and it's just what it costs. So some legal planning is probably very prudent, and it seems like it's not going to happen to you, but as you said, it's statistically pretty.
It's always the other guy.
It's always the other guy.
Imagine that. One time I was the other guy. I said, oh, it's me. I'm the other guy. Oh, God.
Yes, and I've been there too. But thank you, Roger. Appreciate your coming in.
Okay, Tanya, thanks. Thanks for having me.
It's been fun. You've been watching Canton Community Television. We'd like to say that because we know now we appear, Roger, not just in Canton anymore, but now that we're on Verizon, we show up everywhere and sometimes even on the web.
Okay.
You're watching Canton Community Television. I'm Tanya Willer with Roger Levine. Thank you for joining us today.